Following the Battle of Warsaw in the Polish-Soviet War in mid-August 1920, the armies in the center of the Russian front fell into chaos. Mikhail Tukhachevsky ordered a general retreat toward the Bug River, but by that point he'd lost contact with most of his army near Warsaw, and all the Bolshevik plans had been thrown into disarray by communication failures. The Russian armies retreated in a panic, with entire divisions deserting and disintegrating. The Red Army's defeat was so great that the Battle of Warsaw is often referred to in Poland as their miracle at the Vistula. Even though it was a success, the Polish counterattack in the Battle of Warsaw created an awkward situation for the Polish commander-in-chief Józef Pilsudski. Most of his forces were facing north, while the bulk of the Russian forces were located to the east of the front rather than north, and because of this, the Polish army needed time to reorganize before a new offensive could start. The Russian commanding officer Mikhail Tukhachevsky took this as an opportunity to establish a new defensive line along the Niemen River, initially safe from a Polish attack. The new Soviet line ran from the Russian-Lithuanian demarcation line in the north, to the dense forests and swamps of Polessie, with the city of Grodno, now in Belarus, as a pivot point. Both the Polish and Red armies suffered heavy casualties through the war, the peak being during the Russian summer offensive of 1920. Both opposing armies were still in the phase of organization. By August 1920, the Poles mobilized almost 1 million men, which allowed them to reinforce most front-line units to approximately 50 to 60% of their nominal strength. Around 350,000 of those were on active service on the Eastern Front, while the rest served in other units or were in training. The Polish brigades and divisions were usually ill-equipped, but were commanded by experienced officers. Most of them were veterans of World War I. The Red Army suffered heavy casualties in the Battle of Warsaw and lacked organization. Although the reserves of new but untrained recruits were nearly unlimited, the Russian units lacked experienced officers. In the course of the war, the Soviet forces lost large sections of their artillery, which was usually used on the battlefield as a last stand against an attacking enemy. This tactic allowed the Poles to outgun their enemies. The Russian air force were almost non-existent, while the Polish army could use its few planes to successfully disrupt enemy movements and conduct reconnaissance operations. The Red Army's Western Front had more than 700,000 soldiers in August 1920. But a large amount of their forces were either taken prisoner by the Poles or killed in action. A further 68,000 reinforcements in August and another 20,500 in September that year. But Tukhachevsky's forces were only around 20 to 40% of their full strength. However, both the morale and the reinforcement abilities of the Russian troops were far below what they should have been. The Soviet High Command seriously overestimated their own forces. Tukhachevsky was ordered to mount an all-out counter-offensive as soon as the reorganization of the Red Army forces was complete. By August 26, 1920, they manned the Neman, Shara, Suwałki line, and reinforcements from Russia were arriving on a daily basis, and by mid-September Tukhachevsky managed to rebuild most of the divisions lost in mid-August at Warsaw. His forces quickly rose to over 73,000 soldiers and 220 pieces of artillery. Following the High Command's orders, Tukhachevsky planned an offensive of 3 armies: the 3rd, 6 divisions under Vladimir Lazarevich, the 15th, 4 divisions under August Ivanovich Kork, and 16th, 4 divisions under Nikolai Sologub. The plan was for Russian forces to advance south, retaking the Brest fortress and the city of Białystok, with the final objective being the city of Lublin. There the Russians could wait for reinforcements from other Russian units operating south of the Pinsk marshes in northwestern Ukraine, as well as more experienced troops that could be pulled back from fighting on the other fronts of the Russian Civil War. At the same time, Józef Pilsudski's main objective was to reorganize his forces and break through the enemy lines along the Neman River before Russian defenses could be consolidated, thus disrupting any attempts by the enemy of a counterattack. On September 10, 1920, during a staff meeting with his generals, Pilsudski proposed a plan of a major operation near Neman and Shara rivers. Two Polish armies were to tie down the main Russian forces, through a frontal attack aimed at Grodno and Volkovysk, now in Belarus. Simultaneously, a strong force detached from the Second Army was to outflank the Soviets from the north, through a strip of land between Sini and Droskieniki, now in Lithuania, which was controlled by Lithuanian forces, and attack the Soviet army from behind. In the south, the Fourth Army was to assault Volkovysk and prepare to close the encirclement. The first major action took place on September 20, 1920, with the 21st Division attacking Grodno, supported by the Volunteer Division and the 3rd Legionary Division on either flank. The flanking attack by General Lazinski's Suwałki Group, the 1st Legionary Division, and the 1st Lithuanian Byelorussian Division from Sini, took Droskieniki on September 23, and cut the Soviet Third Army's supply line at the Grodno-Vilno Railway. The Polish cavalry reached Radun, and then Lider, and on September 26, General Krajewski's cavalry took Pinsk, now in Belarus, cutting the Soviet Fourth Army's supply line. At this point, Tukhachevsky ordered a retreat,